After 3 years in Denver, the Broncos deciding to part ways with Vic Fangio, and now they begin their fifth head coaching search in 9 years, although the first under GM George Paton. Hello, I'm Phil Milani alongside Aric DiLalla via Zoom. Aric, big news here on this Sunday, the Broncos parting ways with Vic Fangio. First of all, what was your reaction to this decision?
Yeah, I mean it's a tough move, right? Because you're firing a guy that we know George Paton has a lot of respect for. Joe Ellis has a lot of respect for. George Paton on Sunday called him the best coach he's ever worked with and said his football mind, his work ethic were unparalleled. So obviously not an easy decision, but it came down to the fact that the results just weren't good enough at the end of the day. I believe 19-30 during his 3 years in Denver. The Broncos were not successful in the AFC West. So they needed a little bit of a change. And as Joe Ellis mentioned on Sunday, Phil, just kind of need an overhaul from an organization standpoint in terms of the energy, and that when things start to go bad, got to be able to turn it around. So I think that with this coaching search, they're looking for a fresh start.
If Broncos president and CEO Joe Ellis sounded very frustrated when he met the media. Really, the most frustration I've seen from him in a media availability setting. Would you agree with that, Aric?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he mentioned it. The frustration is at an all-time high. He called some of the issues organizational. You know, George Paton said the same thing, that you can't keep hiring new coaches and changing them out and expect that to work. You got to have some stability. They're looking for leadership from this new coach. But Phil, the bottom line is they've got to be better. Joe Ellis made that very, very clear. The excuses have to go away. The urgency has to be there, and the Broncos have to start winning football games.
Yeah, 7-10, not going to cut it. A fifth consecutive losing season for the Broncos, sixth consecutive season on the outside of the playoffs. Let's get into moving forward here with the Broncos. First of all, let's talk about some coaching candidates that the Broncos might be looking at. What are some of the names out there, and what did George Paton say he's looking for from a coaching candidate?
Yeah, well, I think it's first important to say, Phil, what he's not looking for. He doesn't necessarily matter to him whether they're on the offensive side or the defensive side of the football. Doesn't matter to him if they're a previous head coach or a first-time guy. They're going to cast a wide net here. Obviously, whoever comes in, they're going to need a plan for the defense. They're going to need a plan for the offense. But leadership, like I mentioned before, they want someone that can lead this building, that can inspire this football team and the staff. And so that's where it starts. Some of the names that have kind of been mentioned in some different reports: Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys; Nathaniel Hackett, offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers; Doug Peterson, former Super Bowl winning head coach for the Eagles; and then Gerard Mayo is a guy that NFL Network brought up. He's the inside linebackers coach for the New England Patriots, obviously a former player there in New England. But Phil, they haven't officially requested any interviews yet on this Sunday. They said they're likely to start that on Monday. That's when we should probably get a better idea of who exactly they're targeting.
Yeah, we heard George Paton say that none of the current assistant coaches that were under Vic Fangio's staff are candidates this time around. So that was one particular note to pay attention to as the Broncos move forward in this process. Was that interesting to you that he said it doesn't need to be an offensive mind, a defensive mind? He just wants a leader? Because I would say the majority of people are saying you need to find an offensive mind to come in here and help that side of the ball.
Well, you're going to need an offensive mind, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the head coach. I mean, it could be one of these kind of young upstart offensive coordinators. It could be a guy like Doug Peterson, who's won a Super Bowl and has called offenses at the NFL level. But you could also hire a defensive minded head coach. You could hire a CEO type guy and bring in an offensive coordinator that has some of those ideas to implement. The Broncos don't want to take a step back on defense either. And that's something to remember, that you've got to fix the offense. Of course, the Broncos need to get more exciting, more productive on that side of the ball. But if you then drop to 15th or 20th defensively, that's not going to do you much good either. So they need, I think, an expert on one side of the ball, and then they need a plan, a good plan of who's going to come in and run that other side.
As far as the search goes, Joe Ellis said that he's probably going to be on the sidelines for this one, available if George Paton needs him. John Elway is going to be an advisor as well during this process, but George Paton will be making the final decision here as to who will be the next Broncos head coach. Last thing I want to hit on here, Eric, is just about the quarterback position. George Paton was asked, what's more important at this point for the Broncos, a head coach or a quarterback?
Yeah, and he said right we need a head coach because we don't have one, so that's their focus right now. Listen, George Paton through his first year has been very methodical about dealing with things kind of as they come in the right order. He's not one to kind of jump out of place. They're going to deal with the quarterback situation at some point, I'm sure. They have to because Teddy Bridgewater's no longer under contract. Drew Lock is going into the last year's rookie deal. Obviously, he said that it was up and down at the quarterback position. You need to score more points. You need to win football games. So they'll probably address it at some point, I would assume. But George Paton, go back to the contracts for Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick. He was always like, we're going to talk about that at the right time, or picking up Bradley Chubb's fifth-year option. We're going to talk about that after the draft. George Paton is very methodical, and I think that's one of the things that makes him a good general manager is he's not all over the place. The Broncos are going to get to the quarterback position. Right now, they're focused on head coach.
Yeah, and a lot of questions to him about the quarterback position, and he said something I thought that stood out was that we need players who make plays at critical moments. And he said that the Broncos just haven't been good enough there. Said that the fumble returns for touchdowns have been unprecedented, Eric.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay if those stopped moving forward.
Yeah, these game-changing plays need to go in the Broncos' favor moving forward, and that starts with finding the next head coach here and then getting the right players in place. So, sure to be a very busy week moving forward here as the Broncos set off in a new direction, deciding to part ways with Vic Fangio after 3 years here in Denver. That's going to do it for us. For Aric DiLalla, I'm Phil Milani.